Many people talk about the ups and downs of married life, but no one really prepares you for life after your spouse passes away. Welcome to Widowhood Real Talk with Dr. Tina, a safe place for widows, widowers, and their friends and family to talk about love and loss. Find comfort as you listen to honest conversations between Dr. Tina and invited guests who've experienced the loss of their forever partner, share their stories of love, grief, and healing. You are not alone in this journey. Join today's episode and discover a wealth of resources and learn how to connect with others who are traveling the same path. This is Widowhood Real Talk with Dr. Tina.
Hello, Widowhood. Our guest today, Marie, has provided the number one answer to give to someone that is grieving. I've never heard it, but I'm going to be using it every day going forward. Let's get into this conversation now. Hello, Marie. Welcome to the Widowhood.
Hello, Tina. So nice to be here this morning.
When you hear welcome to the Widowhood and Maria's going, what's the ticker tape in your mind if you think welcome to the Widowhood? Like, what's the back?
Right? It was very bizarre when you just said that. It came unexpected. I'm like, is it something to want to be welcome to? You know, that's the first thought that came up. But yeah, here we are in this club together.
I hear that phrase, it's a club that no one wants to be in. Do you think we think about this club in the onset of marriage? And first of all, let me say this. Thank you for being part of this special series, Voices of Widowhood Healing Through the Holidays, because this conversation is probably going to air, I want to say, the first part of December. And we're having this conversation with the intentionality that people during the holidays, grief hits you a different way. So our conversation is focused around that intent, but I want everyone in our community to get to know you first.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I don't think it's anything that you ever think of when you get married. However, my background is maybe slightly different because my mom became a widow when she was 43. My dad passed away when he was 46. I was only 20. So it was somewhat in the back of my mind. However, never in a way that I thought, oh, this could potentially happen to me. I never thought of that. I don't think anybody ever does until it does. Yeah.
It does. Oftentimes our vows say, till death do us part, or
Yes.
these words are there, richer or poor, or sickness or health.
Yeah.
But when they actually show up and your life is transformed and you are a grief advocate of grief, you bring lightness into grief. How do you do all those things for yourself and for others?
I think it comes back to what I just shared before, that my dad died when I was really young. So I had already a very, very intense shift happening in my life at the age of 20, where everybody's, going about being young and happy and completely carefree. That carefree stopped for me the day my dad passed. And I remember the first 1.5 years, roughly, I had no idea how to handle my grief. It was debilitating. It numbed me. It was just something that pulled the rug underneath my feet. And nobody teaches you how to deal with grief, right? And society's expectation is when somebody dies, then especially for a widow, especially for a young widow, your life is over, basically. There's this expectation that grief will last forever. There's language like, there'll always be a hole in my heart. I don't succumb to any of those beliefs. I don't use language like that. So the way I bring lightness into grief is by sharing different perspectives, by allowing, like I am so big on teaching and sharing about the allowing joy back in, allowing love back in. And when you look at the before and after timeline, before somebody dies in your life, it is so normal. Nobody would ever question that there's joy, there's sadness, there's happiness, there's tears, there's all sorts of emotions all over the place, especially for women, before somebody dies. And then afterwards, all of a sudden, there's grief, full stop. And I'm like, not true. It's not the reality. The reality of it is that there'll be smiles and happy tears or laughter even of joyful memories or new memories that you create. But then guilt comes in because society teaches you that that's not part of it, and that's not true. I remember I'm gonna share a very, very quick, scenario that happened that portrays that so perfectly. One of the songs that I always sang to Rob was "Love Is in the Air," because there was so much love between us. I would always sing, and I sing when I'm happy. That's just what I do. And I would often sing that song to him, and I remember I was standing in the kitchen one day after Rob died. I was cutting some vegetables, I was preparing dinner, and I started singing "Love Is in the Air," and all of a sudden, there was this guilt that came in, "Can I really?" And, I remember vividly that quick train of thoughts that rushed through my head, and I forced myself to continue singing. It wasn't with the same enthusiasm and with the same, "Oh," like as I usually do, with all my heart, with all my body, with everything, but I forced myself, not in a negative way. I really encouraged myself to keep singing. And that was very pivotal for me
Yeah.
because I thought in my head, this is what Rob would want. And this is what we promised to each other. We'll get to that promise probably in a minute in that talk, but it was really something that was really, really important for me to continue that love and connection and the joy that we have created together. Differently, of course, but
Yeah.
I would not want to leave that behind.
Thank you for sharing that because I believe so many people struggle with having to choose in their mind. Either I have to choose to be happy or
Mm,
choose to be sad. And in
mm,
choosing to be sad, I am honoring my loved one. I'm honoring my grief. And if I'm choosing to be happy, it equates to that I've forgotten about them and I've moved on, not forward in my life. And
yeah,
I'm not a good widow if you find me laughing. I'm not a good widow if you
mm,
find me wearing a vibrant color or going out with friends. And
yeah,
the both, you can be sad about your spouse not being here, and you can be happy that your life exists and enjoying what you get to do in this world as long as your time exists. That is
yeah,
one of the biggest struggles. And
yeah.
you mentioned about Robert. How did you guys meet, and where are you having this conversation from right now?
I am in Sydney, Australia, and I moved here in 2004. I always had this really, really strong calling to move to the other side of the world. Like Sydney had my heart before I ever came here. And when I was 25, I thought I'm going to go and check it out. And then it took me another almost 7 years and 11 flights back and forth to finally officially make Sydney my home. And then 10 months after I moved here, I met Rob. It
Ooh,
was really, I'm like, wow, okay. And another 10 months later, we were married. If anybody would have told me that, I would have said, are you crazy? There's no way. If he's Mr. Right, he'll still be Mr. Right after, 3 to 5 years. There's no rush. I don't need to. But when I met Rob, people often say this, when you know, you know. I was always like, what do you mean by that? What does that even mean? And when I met Rob, I knew what it meant. When you know, you know. And I'm like, I know now. So, it was such a whirlwind how it all unfolded. I met him in May. I realized I fell in love with him in June. Then in July, he sort of started moving in. In August, he met my friends. In October, he proposed, and in March, we had our barefoot wedding. So it was such a whirlwind, and I can honestly say there was not 1 second of regret in the entire time I was with him. So I'm really, really grateful. Hindsight is always 2020 vision, right? And I'm grateful that it all happened like it happened, and I'm just super blessed. It was a fully set up double date, by the way.
cool. Okay. So let's hear about, we always like some good tea on the
Yeah.
podcast. So we
Yeah.
want to hear about the double date. And I want to hear about this promise that you briefly
Uh,
mentioned.
super important. Yeah. So a double date, I used to go to karaoke nights. One of my very close friends used to love singing, and she was a really, really very enthusiastic karaoke fan. And I would go with her. We would go every Thursday night. For those listening from Australia, some of you might know the Menzies Sports Bar in Sydney.
Ooh,
They had karaoke nights on every Thursday, and then they even doubled up and did Thursday and Friday. So we were regulars. We knew the DJ. We had so much fun there, and it was just always a very casual and super fun night. And I met this chick there. We got on really well, and we had one of those chats as you do between girls. It would be nice to meet a nice man for a change. And she's like, "Oh, I know a nice young man." I'm like, "Yeah, that's what they all say." She said,
Right?
"No, and she started telling me about this guy, and I looked at her and was like, "He sounds too good to be true. Where's the catch?" She's like, "Oh, no catch." I'm like, "So where does he live?" "Oh, at his parents' place in Greenacre." I'm like, "There's the catch." She's
Now
like,
you
"No,
live with his mama and
not
daddy.
not what you think. He's already lived, like, he's lived out of home for, like, 5 years with his girlfriend, blah, 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 but after they broke up, he moved into the granny flat to help them build the house extension." I'm like, that
Aw.
is so adorable. That is so beautiful, you know? So, yes, completely independent in the granny flat just to help them out, and I thought that was so nice, I'm like, "I need to meet this guy." And I met him, and I have to say there wasn't instant, like, fireworks and all of that, like in my usual relationships that I had before. But I always compare that. Before I had relationship with lots of fireworks and lots of ashes. With Rob, there was this little flame that started burning brighter and brighter and never stopped becoming brighter for the entire time we were together. There was this ongoing, steady growth of love between us. And that's what I said. It took me 6 weeks to realize I was in love with him, not like the usual, I met this guy and he's so, you know,
So
there's
you
all
were
this.
before, but something different came from something different, I hear.
Exactly, absolutely, and he said he knew from the second he saw me, that's what he told me, and I felt a bit of pressure because I was going through my working visa, getting my visa sorted, I had lots of stress at work, I just felt pressure from all sides, so I'm like, "I really like you, but, like, just don't pressure me," basically, and after I had this chat with him, that "I really like you, but" speech, he
Well, at
didn't
least
call
you
me
didn't
for.
put him in the friend zone. You kept him
Yeah,
kind of close,
exactly. When
though.
I put it in friend zone, my brain started ticking because he didn't call me anymore. I'm like, "Oh,
Oh,
hmm."
you did
And
put
then
him
I
in the friend zone. Oh, okay.
said, yep, for about 10 days. And 10 days after, we sort of had this phone call and we caught up and
But you missed him, so you gave it a beat, and then you realized, I need
yeah,
some more time with
I'm
Robert."
like, "Now
Okay.
he doesn't call me anymore. Damn it, what have I done?"
Exactly.
Yeah. It ended up with flowers being sent to my office. I don't know if it was, no, it was not my birthday, it was something else. I can't remember, but somehow he sent me 2 dozens of red roses to my office with a vase, with chocolates, with a card. So the whole shebang, and I thought, "This guy is a real gentleman. He really knows what he's doing." And so we caught up and I don't know, somehow along the lines, I realized I feel so much more for him than I thought. And that night, I'm gonna share that quickly as well, when we had dinner and I gave him that friend zone speech, I remember sitting over dinner, we had the best conversation ever, and I looked at him and I thought, "I wish I could fall in love with this guy. He's just so perfect," you know? But I didn't have those sparks yet, and I didn't
Mhm.
know that other way of developing love, like true love, and that all happened. So that all happened, and my wish was granted. I did fall in love with him, and the rest is history. So, yeah, beautiful barefoot beach wedding, 2 boys, the house near the beach later. I started my own business, got out of corporate world, and about, I don't know, few years into it. It was 2015. We got married in 2006. 2015, Rob came home late from work and he gave me a buzz on the way home. And he said, "Babe, I'm going to be about 2 hours late. There was an accident on Heathcote Road." So Heathcote Road goes all the way through a national park. There's no side road. You have to go the way around. It was a huge detour, peak hour traffic. And we learned later that night that there was a front-on collision with a truck and a young fireman off duty has lost his life in a front-on collision, and his wife was waiting at home with their 16 months old daughter. So that really hit home for us because our boys were only a couple of years old, and we ended up having the conversation. It was the most pivotal conversation in my entire life without knowing at the time. And the conversation was about, what would you do if something was to happen to me? For both of us, we looked at each other. We had a really long conversation. I'm still having goosebumps just thinking about it. And it was such a beautiful, sad, confronting, and super important conversation. It was very bonding, like to talk about these things. And in a nutshell, the conversation ended in, "I would want you to create the happiest life possible for you and the boys." And that was the very sentence that echoed in my head when I had to share the news of their dad's passing with our boys.
That
I
is
idea how to do that in that very moment, but this promise became my North Star in my darkest hour.
That is a gift.
It
That is
is.
a gift that you and I both share. But
Yeah.
what I would ask you, for the widow that is listening to this conversation and she never got that gift,
Yeah.
any recommendations on how to find peace in that
Oh,
or
yes.
how to find her North Star that she so desperately needs and wants?
Yeah. I have a very simple solution for that. I understand I always use the word simple deliberately because it's not always easy, but the simple solution for that, and I still use that despite having the promise, despite having had this conversation. When I get stuck, when I feel I need an answer, I need help, I need guidance, I don't know how to decide this, I don't know how to do this on my own, etc., etc., etc. I do the role reversal and I put myself in Rob's shoes and I look down on Marie and I tell her everything she needs to know. Because from his perspective, that's what I believe anyway. I honor and know that everybody's got different spiritual beliefs, but from my perspective, I know that Rob is in a state of pure love and all understanding and knowing. So from that perspective, it is like really such a beautiful role swap for me to put myself in his shoes where I'm coming from a space of pure love and talk to Marie about what I feel that she needs. It's a full on role swap and everybody can do that. And I'm going to give you a very sort of fun story. Like between widows, I can say that this was a fun story. I had one widow
We
say
have
to
the
me,
dark humor thing going on, like, if fun
exactly.
has its difference.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's coming in, exactly, and she was like, "Oh, my husband wouldn't want me to be happy. My husband wouldn't want me to move on with somebody else," like she did that and was like, "All right, let's swap it for from a space of pure and unconditional love, what would you want for her?" You know? I had such a beautiful relationship with Rob. For me, unconditional love and Rob is completely interchangeable. So always come from a space of love. What would love do? That has become my absolute mantra through the highest highs and lowest lows. What would love do? That's the only thing you need.
I love that for me because I had an amazing relationship with my husband. But you
Mhm.
and I, on this process of being in this space for people in grief, there are some people that their spouse passing was just the edge of a divorce that could have happened.
Yeah.
That there are
Or
some people that were in domestic violence, they were not in a healthy place, and
Mhm.
they don't think that their spouse would have love for them. How do they reconcile that
Yeah.
part of them and be able to give themselves the grace to be able to move
Yeah.
forward in life?
The most beautiful part, and again, this is my spiritual belief, the most beautiful part is that as soon as they died, it was already reconciled. There's nothing left to reconcile.
Okay.
And pass into pure and unconditional love, it's done. There's no space for reconciliation. There is no space for guilt. There's no space for shame. It's been solved for you. It's the biggest gift. And I'm saying that with a huge disclaimer because when you're not ready to receive that gift, it can feel prematurely for you to
Mhm.
hear those words. And they might not make sense, or they might even trigger a little bit of anger or resentment when I say those things. But what I'm saying is open your heart to the possibility of love. And I'm not necessarily talking about intimate love or a new relationship, but I'm not excluding it. I'm talking love in general. Open your heart to the possibility of love, and you'd be surprised from how many different angles and in what different forms and shapes love comes into your life after you have experienced something like that. And I will also put that on your closest circle. I don't know how you went with that, Tina. I was very surprised both ways of about how with some people closest circle, I thought they'd be there for me and they weren't. And other people were coming out of the woodworks where I didn't expect them at all. And all of a sudden they became my closest circle. So both was there. My inner circle definitely changed. And that's why I'm saying open your heart to the possibility of love, because that also comes in people that want to support you and be there for you And you need to learn to set boundaries. Be clear on what you need and what you don't need, because people will want to help. And sometimes that can feel very overwhelming when people just want to come in and just drop in quickly and don't realize how vulnerable your personal space becomes in that time. So for the people listening to this, wanting to support, send a quick text up front or a quick call. Don't just go there, knock on the door, and it's like, I just wanted to. If that times 100 a day or times 20 can be super overwhelming, even though it comes from a beautiful intention. But show up and offer simple solutions. I can come past today. Do you want me to? I can cook for you this week. Do you want Tuesday or Thursday? I'll cook for you on Thursday. Would you prefer fish or salad or pasta? Just give them simple solutions, A or B. Don't ask them, just let me know when. Just let me know what. You're not capable of making these decisions with your widow brain. You're
That
not.
part right there.
Yeah.
Give the answer. We can hardly figure out what we did the last 5 minutes.
Yep.
Oh, yes. I love how would you like fish or chicken? This
Yeah.
day or that day? Because
Yeah.
you know them well enough to ask the question. Just let it be simple for them. Yes. Yes. You mentioned earlier about people not knowing what to say. Oftentimes people lean in, these are the things people have said to me.
Mhm.
Can we start with what are some things people should say?
Yeah, absolutely. I One of my go-to lines, because it is such a how long is a piece of string question, like we never know what the situation is like, the person, like even if we know the person, every minute of the day can be different. And so it's really tricky because you never know how they receive it. So my number one go-to is I never assume that this was the worst thing that ever happened to you. And it might sound very controversial when I say that, but it so depends on your spiritual journey and where you're at. So I had some spiritual epiphanies in my journey with Rob where I was like, wow, what a gift. And it sounds weird to say that, but Rob and I had a soul contract, and this was all part of it. And I recognized this soul contract a couple of months, or even just, yeah, a couple of months into his passing. It was quite overwhelming. It took me a long time to process, to accept it in, to wholeheartedly understand it. But from that perspective now, how could I have said, I'm sorry for your loss to somebody when I have this spiritual epiphany where I feel so overwhelmed with this gift that he has given me in his passing? So my go-to is, my heart goes out to you. And I feel it and I mean it when I say it, because it's literally just I'm opening my heart to yours, and that creates the space for whatever it needs to happen in that space. That's all I do. And I mean it when I say it. I never use these words lightheartedly or just as a phrase. I feel it and I mean it when I say it. My heart goes out to you. That's my number one go-to when I don't know what else to say. I never revert to my condolences, never, and never to I'm sorry for your loss, because I don't know the person and the situation and their spiritual contract enough to be sorry for them. I don't want that. I even talked to my boys about it and I said, I don't like that. I'm sorry. I don't want people to say I'm sorry for your loss to me. It's interesting. So
Wow.
yeah.
I plan to use that because it is such a tricky thing to know what to say to someone or what,
Yeah.
but that is sincerely what is going on. My heart is going out to
Yeah.
you in this situation.
Yeah.
I am going to make a statement,
Mm.
and then I would like you to give a alternative
Yeah.
for people, your loved ones in a better place.
That feels like such a slap in the face to receive that. I absolutely loathe when somebody says that. I would rather have somebody say, how do you feel right now? You know, do you want me to sit with you? Would you like me to, would you like to talk about him? Would you want to tell me about him? I'd love to hear about him. There are so many things that you can open this conversation with, but how dare you say to me he's in a better place? Do you know that comes up for me because this is a thing I wanna pause you for a little bit because I know you wanted to do the alternatives, but this is such an important one. I really want to say something else about this. If I, as the widow, come to the understanding that my loved one is in a better place, that's often when they were in a really long battle with cancer, with something terminal, and they've been suffering, and I come to the understanding he's in a better place now. That is such a beautiful gift to come to this place. If somebody says it to me, it feels like a slap in the face because it's not their gift to unwrap. It's mine. They're taking something really, really, really important away from me. You can't do that. And people don't understand what they're doing when they say that. So
Thank
yeah.
you. No, that is perfect
Mm.
because people need to have an alternative because
Yeah.
when the person is grieving,
Yeah.
your tongue is stuck. You don't
Yeah.
even know how to your inside, they may be feeling as you just expressed, but their
Mm.
ability to convey that in a rational manner
Yeah.
is difficult.
Yeah. It is.
And that is why I knew you had the language for that because they're gonna hear that a lot during the holidays.
Yeah.
And they're gonna be able to go, "This is" to create their own version of this, and to
Mm.
also validate, "No, you shouldn't have to be okay with that. You're perfectly fine to
Yeah.
not be in a positive reception to that type of statement."
Yeah.
Because oftentimes for
Thank you.
women, we're trying to be polite or be kind, and inside we're going, "What is wrong with you?"
Yeah. Exactly.
How about
Um,
this one? "This
mhm.
is your 3rd Christmas. You should be over this by now."
It's not a sickness that you get over, it's just people's expectation of how fast you're supposed to move through this is just so off. If you are happy too soon, it's like, oh, she didn't even grieve him properly. If you are still unhappy, then it's like, you should be over this by now. My go to is don't understand. Or when people say, oh, yeah, well, I don't understand. Why you're not, and then I'm like, I'm glad you don't. I'm really glad you don't understand because it means that you haven't experienced it yet. So for me, there's always that how do you draw a line really politely, And you can even say that I do need to draw the line here because you're talking about something you don't understand. You can
And
really say that.
yes, because you said earlier about the idea of not being able to speak to something you don't understand. If I'd come to your place of work and
Yeah.
told you how to do something that I had no clue about,
Yeah.
it would be acceptable for you to say, "That's not the standard that we use here. That's not how
Yeah.
we do this work." How would
Yeah.
someone else come and tell you in
Yeah.
your lived experience how that's supposed to be? Even if you're another widow, who am I to dictate to
Yeah.
you? If you're not harming yourself, you're not
Mhm.
having some unhealthy coping skills and denial. It's just hard
Yeah.
to live in this world without your spouse.
Yeah. I can tell you what I would like to say to them when they say that, but I would never say it out loud. Well, it depends on the situation. If it's bad enough and I can be cheeky enough, I would probably say, "And how many husbands have you lost?" See what happens in that silence. I love it.
I was like, that's a different version of the same answer. From what space do you give me this advice? How many spouses have you lost? That'll shut it down. That'll shut it down very quick.
Yeah. Mm.
What keeps us
Widow card. You can play it.
Do you think women have a harder time conveying how they really feel?
They've got a better way of hiding it, I would say. Women have a better way of hiding emotions because we are so used to dealing with a billion things at a time. Women are the multitaskers. Men are the ones that focus on one thing at a time. It's from hunter and gathering, it's just the way that our brains are wired. Women are so used to sitting around the fireplace, chit chatting, doing a billion things at the same time, and men hunt. And I know we're not in cave time anymore, but we're still wired like that. So as women, we are so used to we always called the emotional species versus the men, but we are also quite good at masking our true emotions, and being brave and showing up as brave. So when I see a woman really brave, I know there's a lot going on behind the scenes, and I've learned to ask the right questions at the right time. I would not out a woman in public about things like that. But when it's a one-on-one conversation, I can have the true heart to heart. And how are you really feeling? You know, Sometimes just a simple question like that can unfold a lot.
It can. Like we're doing here in this conversation, we are creating a space for someone to listen to this discussion and know that it's okay how they feel.
Mm.
Dealing with small children in grief and the holidays, any suggestions or share your lived experience in that?
Yeah, I'd like to share my lived experience with that because Rob died in June. And so we had about half a year to prepare for all these first milestones to come without him. The first Christmas, New Year's, both the boys' birthdays are in January. So Rob and I had actually planned a trip around the world for an entire year. We wanted to homeschool them. We had started an online business that started to become very lucrative, and we wanted to just do that for an entire year. And then he died. And I still had the entire itinerary, and I thought, I can't do this on my own. I can't possibly travel to South America with two boys on my own as a widow, grieving, homeschooling. There's no way I can do homeschooling and grieving on my own at the same time. So instead, this is a pivotal moment again. I always look at what can I do? Because what can't I do, or what I can't do this without him, I can't do this without him. It's very debilitating. You're digging a hole and you're sinking deeper and deeper. So I always look at what can I do? What can I do on my own? And I remember standing at the travel agency and I was looking at this big world map, and I had a couple of things picked out already where I wanted to go with the boys. And then there was this 1 week where we had nothing planned. The first week of our trip had no destination yet because one destination was the Canary Islands. My godfather migrated to Canary Islands. I always wanted to go there. And he is such a father figure for me. And I knew that would be such a safe space to land, literally. So we had 9 days there, and he had a couple of holiday houses. He's like, I've got this one house that's empty for those 9 days. You can have it. I'm like, yes. So I had this 1 week extra. I'm like, where are we going to go? And I was standing at the travel agent with a big world map, and I had my finger on the Canary Islands and I had my finger on Australia. It's actually the other way around, but I don't know how you see it on the camera. And I literally went, okay, what's in the middle? And I was like, oh, we're going to the Maldives. So we had a week in the Maldives to start our trip off after all that intense time of losing their dad, flying across the country to identify his body, arranging the funeral, then the first Holy Communion of my little one without his dad, and then going back to school, back and forth, staying home, going to school, writing my first book. And there was all this stuff that happened in that very short time frame. And then we went on a trip away for 2 months. We traveled around the world. It was the best thing I could have ever done. I understand not everybody has got the means to travel, but if you can, change something about your routine, because celebrating the holidays the way you've always done it makes it, in my opinion, in my humble opinion, harder to deal with it. Completely deliberately changing it, even doing a weekend away, you don't have to worry about anybody else. A lot of people go, yeah, but I should be there and I should be with family. I should. Don't you should on me. Just do what your heart desires. If you desire to be with family, do it. If you desire to be away and hide, do it. People are under this opinion, oh, you can't hide away from grief. Yeah, you can. It'll probably hide with you, but you don't have to be with the whole expectation, of family and of the environment where you usually are, or how she's gonna deal with that. And all eyes on you. It's so much pressure. It's just, if you feel like running away, do it. It's fine. You're allowed to run away from it. It'll be waiting for you. Don't worry. So, yeah.
And you're talking about skipping now, you're not talking about running away from everything forever. You're saying to give yourself space to be able to do that.
And I can promise you, it is a lot easier to deal with that wave that is coming sitting in your private pool in an overwater bungalow in the Maldives, looking out onto the ocean, watching the fish go by, than being at home where you feel his absence so much more, and now I should create a happy Christmas on my own for them, you know? It's like we even had the tooth fairy and the Santa conversation in that pool, and I thought, what an amazing place to have that conversation, and at the same time, everything inside of me was like, "No, not this year. Please give me one more year where they believe in Santa and the tooth fairy," but yeah, we had that conversation there and then, and it's now a beautiful memory, not a painful one.
Those are words of hope. Those are
Yeah,
words of encouragement, and I love how you wrapped it down to no matter what your financial situation is. Maybe it's going for a walk in the park versus where
yeah,
you would sit at home and
yeah,
cry, changing your scenery. One of the things that I found very helpful and I recommend to people, sometimes you may say, "I don't wanna live here anymore," but you may not have the means to relocate. But if you
yeah,
change the furniture around in the house,
yeah. What I did.
a can of paint, it
Yeah,
changes the muscle memory of what you're looking at, and it allows you to see it from a different perspective. Refreshing where you're at and do
mhm.
can have a way of helping you manage this process. You said something about a wave. Can you go a little bit more into that wave and what that looks like and some suggestions on how to manage that?
Yeah. I very often describe or compare grief with the ocean, you know, because sometimes you look out in the ocean, it looks all calm and quiet, and then you step in, and all of a sudden there's this rip, and you have this undercurrent, and you didn't see it coming, and it just sucks you in. And you can literally feel like you're drowning, but sometimes, especially people living near the ocean, they would understand that you don't fight a current in the ocean. You turn on your back and you breathe and you wait the current to wash you out on the other side. There is a lot of similarities in the way we deal with grief and the way we deal with the ocean. And that amazing quote, you know, like it so feeds into that comparison. People often say, "Oh, we're in the same boat," and there's actually a meme, an image to that. And one is in this luxury yacht, and the other one is in this tiny little rowing boat, and we're like, "We're in the same boat, right?" I think we're all swimming in the same ocean, but in some parts of the ocean, it's really quiet and calm, and in other parts, it's rough storm, and you wouldn't go in surfing for the life of it, you know? But sometimes you're thrown into that ocean, so we need to learn how to deal with that when the wave comes, especially when it comes unexpectedly and it tumbles you under and you don't know where up and down is. You hold your breath when you're under, you come up, you take a deep breath. The take a deep breath is a really big one that I use all the time, almost on a daily basis. When something feels overwhelming, one deep breath, you're back in the present moment. And you do the same thing when you're out in the ocean. You know, you flip yourself on the back, which means just take a break and you breathe and you wait for the storm to pass. So there's so many analogies with the ocean, and choose wisely whose boat you enter when somebody comes to rescue you, you know? Sometimes you don't have the choice to you know, when you're almost drowning and somebody throws your ring, you grab it no matter what boat that is. But when you're in there, you can choose whether you wanna stay in that, whether it feels good, whether it feels like you're actually saved or just in a better situation than before and still not happy. You can choose to step into that luxury yacht, you know, like there are all these beautiful analogies, or go on a party cruise or go on a grief cruise where you can heal, you know, there's so many analogies. But know that every storm passes.
Mm.
And while you're in the storm, just don't forget to breathe.
Wow. Marie,
Mm.
this has been an amazing conversation. I want to say thank you for being willing to have this discussion with the intentionality of encouraging our fellow journeyers on this widow experience. And it may be someone that's grieving the loss of a parent or a friend, a family member. Grief has a way of looking the same and different all at the same time. So
Yeah.
I wanna say thank you. We covered a lot. Is there something we should have covered that you feel like we missed or some other advice you'd like to share?
I would like to share. I know it sounds like an ad break now, and I'm shamelessly using that. I'm losing it. I'm losing it. I'm using it. I have put a book together about everything that we talk about today, the grief language, the what to do, what not to do, what to say, how to support, there is a part in there that goes to the griever, a part in there that is for my children, from the children's perspective. They have co-written that. I'm so proud. There's a part that goes to the support person, and then there is a part with recommendations and references and helplines is the final part. And that book is called My Person Died, What Now? I wanted it to come out before Christmas because I know that is a time where people will need it the most. So if you are in the grief yourself, or if you want to support somebody, it is really the perfect gift you can give them for Christmas.
Where can they find that book? Where will it be available? Or how can they reach you?
The answer to all of that is my website, mariealessi.com. So you find everything there. You can connect with me. You can find courses on there. You can find ways to work with me directly, to buy my books, or just to listen to my podcast. You find all of that on my website.
Wow. And your podcast, what do you talk about? And what would it look like to work with you?
So my podcast is called Unsilenced Grief, and they are conversations just like we are having right now. So this is my official invitation for you to come and speak on my podcast.
Okay.
Putting you on the spot.
I'm going to say yes in front of everybody, yes.
I find it just so important to give people a platform that have got a hopeful story to tell, and I know that you do. So we are having conversations just like you and I here now. It's a half an hour podcast as well. So I go live weekly with that. So it's not pre-recorded. My podcast goes live.
Oh, notice how she said that at the end, that it's not pre-recorded, just so y'all saw that. She said, can you do this? And then she said, oh, it's live. Okay.
Okay. So do I need to repeat anything now?
No, because now I know it's live. I wasn't prepared for that bit of it. Okay.
Okay. So yeah, Unsilenced Grief, weekly live interviews, conversations just like you and I. And there was another question you had.
What you said people can work with you. What are the options, and what does that look like?
Yeah, so I do have my online courses that you can find on my website. That is absolutely DIY, where you have video content that you can work through in your own time. And there is also an option to work with me one-on-one, but that is limited to 5 people at the time. I am working with 4 clients at the moment. So one has just finished his round. There is another spot open, but by the time you hear this, it might not be. It's just a matter of like, reach out to me and we can have a conversation about where you're at. I might point you in somebody else's direction. I might give you book recommendations. I always say, have a chat with me first and we'll take it from there.
Very well. I am going to say something to the people that joined us on this conversation, and then I would like for you to close this out.
Sure.
Thank you for being in this conversation with us. I know that you may not be happy about what drew you to this conversation, but this is value add. And I am so grateful for you trusting us to hold a safe space for you to bring hope, healing, and encouragement during this, what can be a difficult time, but learning how you can bring light into this for yourself.
I love this so much, and I really don't have a lot to add. The only thing I want to say is trust your heart. It might not always make sense, in particular to people outside of you, but as long as it makes sense to you and it feels good, follow that.
Thank you.
Thank you for spending another episode with Widowhood Real Talk. If you found the contents of today helpful, share the episode to anyone you know who may need it. Subscribe to the show and tune into Widowhood Real Talk each week. Then, visit widowhood-realtalkwithtina.org to join the community and access additional resources. Remember, you are not alone in this journey.